Hi, this is Owl Healing. Oh, no, wait, let me start. Hi, this is Maria from Owl Healing. Sorry. And this is Sophia. I think we've talked about us meeting and doing an interview last time we recorded our channeling. And I'm super excited to get to know you a little bit more. I sent you some questions to prepare you for the session. Of course,
Mm.
this is still a very sacred session. And before we hopped on to Zoom, I did have a little prayer for myself and invited your higher self to be present. That's super important to me. Uh,
Yes.
so I guess we could get started. So the
Mhm.
questions that I had for you is, who are you, Sophia?
So, at first, I was thinking about that question. I was like, well, who am I? I'm just the first answer that popped is I'm alive being having an earth experience.
that is um the spiritual answer, but who is your
Yeah.
human? Who is your human?
Who is my human? I'm just here really to help. And I help through a quantum healing hypnosis because that's what we're all here for, kind of just to help.
Mm-hmm. So what is quantum healing hypnosis? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. It's a quantum healing hypnosis technique is what I use. It was developed by late Dolores Cannon. And it's basically what it does is brings a person to a theta state through my words, right? And we go through a process, either, however people call it differently. People say past life regression. I don't necessarily call it that because we don't always go to past lives. And then we connect to the all-knowing higher self. We give it a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the client can't get answers to any of the questions that they might have, because our higher selves is all-knowing.
Okay, so let me just kind of
Yeah.
try to clarify what you just said.
Yeah, sorry.
And that's okay. You put people in a state where they are able to tap into either their higher selves or they're able to channel. And
Interesting
right.
that you're getting channeling. That's very interesting. Because I guess you could call it channeling, yes. But yeah, but the reason why we do this, right? Because some will be like, well, what's the point of doing it, kind of, is for healing, emotional healing, physical healing, any illnesses, you name it, anxieties, childhood traumas. As I put it, all the baggage that we carry with us into adulthood, that really affects all of our view of the world, right? And also our relationships. And that's what we get rid of.
So can you give me an example of a session? You know, of course, you don't have to say any names, where the client was able to heal a trauma or heal an emotional issue. Could you give us an example?
Sure. I do get clients with sexual traumas,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it doesn't mean necessarily that during the session they will relive it. I apologize. So that's not what happens. Some do, some don't, so they don't necessarily see it. But once we get to the higher self, I usually have specific questions. So my question always is whether it was needed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because our life, we're here to learn. And unfortunately, lessons are not always pleasant, right? And I ask that question so that the person, because we do record the sessions, the person when he or she is listening, it's they get the understanding as to why this happened, right? And then basically it's as easy as whether this person still needs these feelings, right? If they're needed, then I ask a question why they're needed so that the person understands why, right? If they're not needed, our higher self is able to heal us, right? What is our higher self? That's part of us. And we make ourselves sick, right? A lot of times it's with thinking, anger, right? It's the same, anxiety, right? All of those things affect, essentially, if it prolonged, right, it affects our bodies. So if we're able to make ourselves sick, then we are able to heal ourselves as well. So that's what higher self does, right? So that's kind of on a broader, right? There's a lot of I recently actually sat down and thought that my recent clients, a lot of them are healers or teachers themselves, right? Because healers need healing, right? Or light workers, however you want to call them. And that's just noticing the trend that people are coming in at what a lot of people, especially the ones that came in and their mission is to teach information, right? To pass it along, like yourself, right? A lot of times what I notice is that fear of being judged by others. Therefore, they get information, right? But they're scared to share it. But if you don't share it, that's what it's meant for, right? Eventually, also illnesses come into this and so on and so forth. So what I literally, it's just as easy as I just ask whether or not, I always ask whether or not the person still needs that feeling, right? Because if it's needed, I would like to know why. And then if it's not needed, I ask them to release it.
Very cool. So you basically have a conversation with their higher self.
It's kind of like talking to a friend, right? And and since higher self was really, we're all one, so all of our higher selves are connected. So it's basically a friend that comes to visit each time I have a new client, but it's the same friend that, right?
Yeah.
They kind of already, they know.
Yeah, I guess I do have a ton of questions when it comes to that, being a light worker myself and helping people release their trauma and release fear. I have my own methods, of course. I like working with the human. I mean, sometimes the higher self is needed, but I notice that when I work with the human, the us, right? The human, they are able to forgive. That's what I use, is forgiveness. And you kind of bypass the human and go straight to the source and reset some emotions. Is it possible for the human to get those emotions back, even if you reset them?
Oh yeah. Yes. So a lot of has to do, so let's talk, let's call the higher self our subconscious, which really not the right word, but I feel like people understand it more, right? And our humanness, we're going to call consciousness, right? So when people are in the subconscious mode, right, when we're speaking to the higher self, all the healing gets done, right? But it's the consciousness that once the person comes out of trance, it's the consciousness that kind of is like, well, this was all dumb and stupid. That didn't work, right? So what I see, the trend of, and actually Dolores Cannon was also the one who would say it, that if a person comes to, right, and they had, let's say, a pain in their left leg, and they no longer do, if they wake up and they're like, well, it's going to come back anyways, it will come back in 2 months. But if they do the work, because it's not, you mentioned that you like to work with the human, you like to work with the consciousness. And I understand why, because if a person consciously understands that they need change and they do the change, they do the work, then they will change. Whereas in my work, a lot of times people come and they're like, well, fix me, right? And they don't always understand that they still have to do the work.
Right.
Right? And the work comes afterwards, where you received all this information, you know why this, and where you need to go and where you need
So
to
now
be.
sit with it, right? Now sit with it and do the shadow work. You're
Yes.
not going to spiritually bypass the shadow work. You're not going to spiritually bypass anything. You have to do the work. And it's so funny because I've had a couple of people where they're like, I'm so sick of this. I don't want to do any more work. I'm like, hey, you have free will, baby.
Yeah.
Go, and you don't have to do any work. You don't have to forgive yourself, because that's number one.
Mhm.
It's not about forgiving it. I mean, it's part of it, forgiving people, but it's mostly forgiving yourself that is super important, because you're the one holding on to these beliefs,
Yes.
right? So if you don't want to do the work, then you're going to live in a life of mediocrity.
Mhm.
And if that's what you choose, hey, I respect you, man, and I still love you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a choice. Absolutely. I mean, during the session, don't get me wrong, we do release a majority of things, right? So, but there's still, as you said, that shadow work, there might be, for some people, it's different. I'll give you my example. When I had my first session, like basically I would have pains all through kind of like the right side of my body, like my leg, right? And like right side is usually something that's happening now, right? Left side is usually the past. So something was happening now. And during my session, what my higher self said is it's anger, right? It's resentment, it's all of those. And during the session, a lot was released. A lot was released. Like the whole, the whole time I could feel it was like vibrating and hurting and releasing and releasing and releasing. But there's still work that needed to be done. I still had to go home and still work on it, right? Still forgive. And that's when I tell people that it's very important to listen to your session more than once. And that's usually also, I just ask the higher self now that question at the end, well, how many times this person should listen? Like my personal higher self said, well, she needs to listen every day for months.
Yeah.
And again, that all those feelings were, kind of sitting in my leg, right? And they were so deep, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
And that, but it's very important to listen to the session, because that energy and that healing, it's still there.
Yeah. The frequency, right? The
Yes.
activation, all of these beautiful medicines that it happens within those types of sessions. And like even this podcast is going to be very healing for someone, I think. You can't bypass the shadow work. And you can't pretend that there's only light and that everybody's happy and you'll never get angry. No, that's the part I think for me that was very difficult. And I think I still struggle with is anger, that emotion. It's, first of all, I didn't even recognize that I was angry, but my body recognized I was angry, right? Because it has such a negative, it's a negative emotion that people kind of talk about. You should never be angry. You should always be in peace and in light and love. And that's not true. We have those parts of us that are bitter, that are holding on, that we hold on to, that we pretend it's not there. And that's the shadow work that needs to happen. So yeah, I mean, I kind of completely respect and love your work, because at the end of the session, hey, you still have to do your shadow work, bud. if there's a debrief where that's said, they don't, come back, hey, I started smoking again. What the fuck? What the hell? Like, you were supposed to help me here. Yeah.
And funny enough, about smoking, I have people who come because people are so used to hearing hypnosis and, quit smoking or lose weight. They're like, well, I want to quit smoking. Can you help me with that? I'm like, and the funny thing is, each time we get to the higher self and I ask that question, do you know what the answer is? The answer is, if he or she wanted, they would have done it. That's the answer. And then the next stuff will be like, well, she has this, and this and this at home that she can use to help herself. But again, it's a choice because we're
choice.
Right. It's sort of like a shadow work in a way as well, right? Because you have to go through the process. You have to figure out, okay, when do I smoke? It's stress. What stresses me out, right? And it's still work. But we're so used to, and don't get me wrong, I'm for modern medicine. It helps many people, but we're so conditioned to, I have a headache. Well, here's a pill, like that magic pill that will cure it all, right?
Yeah.
Instead of there and being like, well, did I really drink enough water today? Did I eat enough? Right? There are other reasons why we have a headache, which we don't go to the root of. We're just like, here's a pill, and that's what we're using. And that's why a lot of people don't want to do the work.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with our generation. I'm assuming you're Generation X. I'm not sure. You might be a lot younger than I am.
I'm more like Generation X, but I'm a really early millennial because I'm an 85.
Okay.
But I feel more like Generation X because I don't.
Yeah. So Generation X and millennials are very much like the microwave generation, where they want things now.
Yeah.
And I was like that for a very long time. I'm like, why? I'm trying to manifest, nothing's coming. Like, what the hell? But you have to be you have to be willing to do some work. You have to be willing to be patient and wait. You have to be willing to love yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's it. You show up for yourself every day. That's it. If you're doing shadow work, you're showing up for yourself. Also allowing yourself to take breaks from shadow work as well, because I think that's something that I kind of had an issue with in my spirituality, where I was gung-ho and I was just like, I want to do shadow work every day. And my energy was so fried. And my higher self was like, woman, 3 days, nothing. I don't want you to read a book. I don't want you to do anything. I want you to just relax for 3 days. That was painful for me to do, but it's something that I had to learn too as well. Self-care is also not doing anything.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes.
So that's pretty amazing. Now let's move on to where are you from?
Oh, okay. So I was born in Russia. Lived there till I was 14, but I grew up in New Jersey. So I guess that's where I'm from. Like people move around, you go to college. I went to college north. Yes. Not obviously, I'm not using my college education at all.
That's okay. I'm not using my college education. Well, actually, I am. I'm a communication major, so this makes sense, right?
It was useful at least, right?
Yeah. So I guess my next question is, when did you start your spirituality? Is your family spiritual, or are they completely different?
No. I'm like the black sheep of the family. So
the black sheeps are usually the ones that are spiritual. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
I feel like spirituality, I guess, like I've always felt, even when I was little, one of the first memories is me just looking at my hands and being like, why am I in this? Like, what's on? But I think it started more 4 years ago. So let me just tell you this. So I feel like we all search, a lot of us, but we go to places where that are familiar to us. So my family is atheist, but we are Jewish, right? But I wasn't really brought up in a religious home, but that's where I would turn to first, right? Because that's probably seeking also spirituality. So that started a long time ago, like in my 20s. It didn't sit well with me.
What,
Too many,
just your religion, like Judaism didn't sit well with you?
well, I think in general, a religion didn't sit with me. Too many
Okay.
restrictions. And I don't like feeling restricted. So I did that for a while, right? But then I wasn't feeling it, and I was kind of lost. And then about 4 years ago, it's interesting that I was raising my son, so a lot of stuff on my YouTube were mostly cartoons, and all of a sudden Dolores Cannon um, pops up. So she has on YouTube, she has a lot of her like videos, and she speaks about her books. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it really resonated with me, and it answered a lot of questions that I had. It's kind of like they're in the back of your head because you're searching for something, for the
Yeah.
meaning, and so on and so forth. And they answered a lot of my questions, and I think that's when it really sparked. So the process was long, right? But that's 4 years ago is where I finally kind of got something that would resonate with me.
Yeah.
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 And it's
Dolores
been,
Cannon.
yeah.
Yeah. Dolores Cannon was a very interesting individual, for sure. I think she had a beautiful gift. I did read some of her work. So that was pretty amazing stuff. I think that what we think we know, there's so much more that we could even understand. I think she kind of broadened our or expanded our minds to really understand that there's so much more out there. Yeah, so that makes sense that you would resonate with her, especially with what you're doing now. So that's when you decided to look into to being a quantum, what was it? Quantum,
Healing hypnosis.
yeah.
Yes. I mean, I started reading her books, and I'm like, these are awesome. I love this information, but I want to do what she does, because I could see that it helps people. And that's always what I've always done. I've always liked to help people,
Yeah.
be just listening, like with a
Mhm.
conversation. And, um, and I remember one time I was able, when I was little, I would actually like heal my mom with my hands.
Yeah.
But bro, it kind of like, and then I always thought it was just like a joke, like kids play.
Yeah.
So, but then it came back, and I'm like, no, this was not a joke,
Yeah.
right? And that's what it really was. But yeah, but that was interesting. Yeah.
Very cool. So before I start asking more things, I wanted to ask you, who was your biggest mirror? And by mirror, I don't know if you guys know that term, but mirror is the person that's here to teach you the most about your shadow, about who you are. Who was that for you?
That's a good question. I know who it is now. I mean, my partner in business, we're literally, we really help each other in that way.
So I guess let me just ask it in a different way.
Yeah.
Who, as a human, do you think that has hurt you the most in your life?
Oh,
You were about to say it.
you know, I was gonna say myself.
No.
No, because I don't really, because
Like
yeah, go ahead.
it's okay for you to say I've already dealt with it,
Yes, I have. So I'm like trying to think. I'm like, because there's no feelings like that.
pero
Uh,
I'm speaking Spanish, sorry. But but that teacher in your life Okay, let me talk about my teacher and my mirror. Um, because I already dealt with it, but there's still a never-ending many layers of growth. My mother. Okay. So my mother was my biggest mirror. Beautiful, strong woman, but she had a dark side in her. And once I realized that her dark side is my dark side, I was like, shit. She was my biggest mirror. I was able to more comfortably, even though it's not really comfortable, see my shadow self with her. So who was yours?
Well, yes, the people who are closest to us are the ones who kind of know how to push our buttons. I guess I would say also my mom, because it's someone who had the most influence, right? But there's many others, right? There's always
Oh yeah,
other.
heck yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um, but yeah, yes, because yeah, now you talking about this, and you know how we never want to be like our mothers, right?
There's a reason.
Yes, but then we
Yeah,
really are.
yeah. It's the reason why we don't want to be. And I'm not saying everybody. There's a lot of wonderful mothers out there that are like, I want to be like my mom, but it's the darkness in them is our
Yes,
darkness.
yes.
Truly. Like one of the things that I criticized my mom about when I was younger was, why is she acting like a victim? And I'm just like, wait a minute, I'm acting like a victim. And that realization is so painful when you're
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I'm I'm being a victim myself. I had no fucking clue. I'm sorry, this is not for kids. I was also in the military, so I have that the potty mouth. But yeah, once you realize who your biggest mirror is in your life, you're able to heal completely. And
Yes.
but it's like a never ending layers and layers and layers of healing. There's so much to it.
And I just want to add, it doesn't mean that we had bad mothers. No.
No, 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 not at all. I love my mother.
Yes, yes. It's just we all need uh it's like a lesson as well. I feel like everything is a lesson. And
Yeah,
if we look at life not as not from the standpoint of a victimhood, right? Where my parents did this to me, my ex-partner did this to me, but we look at it right as a shadow, as a lesson.
it's a lesson. Everything's a lesson. It's a beautiful. That's another thing. Everybody's so scared of the shadow, right? Including myself. I've been known to be. I don't want to look at my shadow, but the shadow is so beautiful when you really think about it. That's the aspects of you where you tormented yourself, you criticized yourself to death about that part of you, and that's why you don't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
It just needs love, basically, right?
Yes, love and acceptance.
Love and acceptance for sure.
Yes.
So how has your spirituality and 4 years ago, has that changed your life of the person that you are now?
Oh God. Where do I start? Um, so that was only the beginning, and as we know, it usually gets worse before it gets better, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, how has it changed my life? There's so many realizations again about the victimhood. Do I want to be a victim? I'm not a victim. Realizing that no one has to make me happy. That's not their job. The only person that can make me happy is me. There's
Wasn't
no.
that the most painful thing to really, really kind of integrate into your being? It's like, oh, I can't blame anybody. I can't blame others for my issues. What? That's what the whole, that's what the whole world is wanting you to do, is programmed inside of you that for some reason victims are like, yeah, the underdog. They're
Mhm.
like embraced and yes, let's all be victims and overcome it somehow, right?
Yeah.
But once you take that responsibility that your environment is what you created,
Mhm. Exactly.
oh
Yeah.
my God, ouch.
Yeah. And that's, I feel like that was the hardest. That was the hardest lesson. Um, because it's like that's what the whole life was built on.
Yeah. Your whole movie,
Yes.
yeah, was built on a lot of lies for sure.
Yeah. And then we have to clear all the conditioning that was done to us, right?
Yeah.
So, and I come from like a Russian Jewish family. So for us, it was very always important. That's what we're taught. You need to have a career. It's a lawyer, it's an accountant, it's a doctor.
Yeah. So
So
what did you go to school for before?
I'm an,
And a what?
I'm an accountant.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I am. Yeah. And that was also difficult to kind of like go against the grain kind of thing.
Right.
Your whole upbringing against
Yeah.
your whole family.
Yeah.
And there's always fear because we love our family, and
Yeah.
there's always fear that we will not be unconditionally loved.
Or accepted. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
But interestingly enough, when I started doing my work, I was very scared to kind of come out to the family. But once
You
I did,
out of the metaphysical closet.
yes, out of metaphysical closet, yes. Once I did, um, the reaction was completely different than what I expected. So I was expected, all of those kind of like, well, you can't make a living on it. What is this? This is, mumbo jumbo or whatever else, right? But I find that my family, for the most part, was very, very supportive, which I'm very thankful for. So then that's what I would tell people, that yes, we are scared, but we don't know what we're scared of, because
Yeah.
the outcome be completely different than what we think.
Yeah. I have one I'm mentoring someone that has hmm, lied a lot, not being authentic because he's afraid what other people think. I'm like, you don't know how they're gonna respond. And if they respond the bad way, fuck them. Like you have to be
Yeah.
authentic, man.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that you learn slowly. You can't be pushed into it. You have to learning it in your timing when you're ready to be authentic. It takes time.
It's work
It's
on work.
work.
Yes. And I
More work.
usually, well, what's the worst that can happen? Like
Right.
the worst case scenario. And if they talk through it, it's not even that bad.
Right. They're gonna look at you sideways. So
You got to
but
get you at the end of the
yeah.
day.
Yeah,
You're like,
but I think people that suffer from being accepted and being unconditional loved, they have the most they're more it's more difficult for them to come out of the metaphysical closet than anybody else. Yeah.
but yeah, that's where the self-love work needs to come first.
Yep.
Like,
Self-acceptance and self-love for sure.
yes. And coming back to only you can make yourself happy. And it's like, who do you choose? Do you choose to make others happy, or do you choose to make yourself happy? What is more important?
Right. Yeah. All right. I want to tell you, I'm going to ask you one more question. And then I want to also use an opportunity for us to channel together live, of course.
Yep.
Of course,
Mhm.
the original plan was to go live on YouTube. And my guides told me yesterday, hey, Maria, go on YouTube and mess with it. And I'm like, no, it's not till tomorrow, man. Like, chill, relax. And of course, I went on YouTube and started messing with it early. And they're like, it takes 24 hours for you
Mhm.
to be activated. And I'm like, oh, I should have listened to my guides. They know. It's very subtle,
Yeah.
but they know. Anyway, the last question I have for you, this is, again, this is something where what we've been talking about is what just recently, if you could tell us what aspect or what shadow have you seen and wanting, has it popped up and you were able to accept it and
Mhm.
integrate it?
So I think the recent one was relationships and jealousy, right? That understanding that love, uh, love is a frequency, not a relationship.
Mm-mm.
So, and understanding that if two people are together, we're really all free, and kind of letting go of that like different
Expectations?
expectations or possession, right? And I'm not talking about having an open relationship. That's not what I mean. What I'm talking about is not having that fear that women men have, that he or she might leave me, right? Because if we understand that love is a frequency, not a relationship, even if that person, because we all have free will, it's like loving the person so much and concentrating on the love, right? Loving them so much that if they choose to leave, right, and that's okay, I'll still love you. Yes, it's gonna hurt, but you don't belong to me, neither do I belong to you, so I also have a free will of leaving, I'm sorry, right? So I think that understanding, that last shadow of like jealousy or fear, because jealousy is essentially fear of being alone. I've worked with it, worked through it, and I just feel lighter because I am in a relationship, but I'm no longer, it's kind of like there's only love, right?
Right. So what you're describing is you are getting rid of attachments.
Yes.
Even being in a relationship, you could be codependent.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're codependent, you're going to have fear of not being accepted. You're going to have fear of being left or abandoned. You're going to have fear of not being good enough.
Yes.
When you're in a relationship and you are your own being, centered, whole, complete, because that's who we all are, but really, really knowing that in your heart, you respect that person, the other person, for being who they are, and you respect yourself. You're able to speak your truth and not feel like, oh, if I tell him I don't want to go out tonight, maybe he's gonna be disappointed in me.
Mm-hmm.
If your guides are saying you can't go out tonight because you're integrating something, you just did some shadow work, you can't be out right now, but you force yourself to go out just to please someone else,
Mm-hmm.
that's not good either. So you're basically taking your power back and you're giving him his power back too. And
Yes.
that's beautiful. I don't know. For me, I'm in the same situation that I've done that. And I'm still working on that because I do catch myself with roles. Husbands should be doing this and wives should be doing that. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's just craziness. That's just belief, right? I
Mm-hmm.
catch myself sometimes, but I'm working on being authentic to myself and being able to tell my partner the truth about everything that I'm thinking about. And I think eventually in the future, marriage is not even going to be a thing, to be honest with you. I think we're going to be with a partner that is going to help us continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be together. And if someone needs to leave because they're going in a different path or they're not going to grow anymore, you have to be with someone that is equally yoked, right? energetically, that you have to be equals. And it's no longer going to be this bitter, you left me. He doesn't belong to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't belong to him. So don't take that shit personal.
Mm-hmm.
And I still see on Instagram, man hating things that are like, motherfucker is a dog or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you continue to feed that belief, and that's not even the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Love and respect that person for being a part of your life and your journey. And also be willing to be like, I release you, man.
Yes.
I wish you the best and I bless your path. I know I'm going somewhere higher. Let's see it.
Well, I'm
you
looking
know?
at that because, gosh, I'm looking forward to that. When you said that, this is how relationship are going to be in the future, I'm so looking forward to that, because a lot of times there, a lot of times we have traumas, right? And two people who are extremely traumatized come together as
Shit.
yeah. And as my partner says, two sickies don't make a welly. You know what I mean?
No.
So there's so much there that, and then there's they essentially don't help each other, right? It only makes,
No.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I'm still looking forward to that day. And when you said the mirror, I didn't even think about my mother, and I'll explain to you why. Because my partner, what we do for each other now is we kind of like, we mirror, but it's done differently now. Whereas our parents are, we kind of act like them, right? And we see ourselves in them. Whereas in this relation, we help each other grow. So if I am doing something, I'm like, well, this is what you're doing, right? So I do it with my words, not necessarily, and then he does the same, where I'm like, oh, that is what I'm doing. And then there's this time of, or something comes up, like with the jealousy, right? Something comes up and we're able to help each other because we talk through it and we figure it out. So I also call it mirroring, kind of, because we show each other, or we're not afraid to tell each other that this is what you're doing, but
Yeah.
in a way,
Yeah.
right? Not in a
As long
way.
as, the only thing I would say about that, it's as long as it's you resonate with what's being said.
Yes.
And as long as you're like listening, right? Listening to what the other person has to say, but only taking what resonates to you. And if someone's trying to make you see their point of view and you're not seeing it, being okay with, listen, I know what you're saying. I'm going to take this part. I agree with you, but
Mhm.
this, I don't agree with you. I'm going to leave it here. And you
Yes.
have to be okay with that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. I mean, as
That's
long as that's,
yeah. That's where respect comes, right?
yeah.
Because yeah, I'm not ready for that part. It's either doesn't work for me at all, right?
Mhm.
Or I'm not ready for it, and I will take it the moment I get there.
Right.
So it's a matter of definitely great respect. And again, love as a frequency, not a relationship,
Right.
right? So it's respect, understanding, and it's not, we don't do it in a way, well, you said this and da. You know what I mean? It's in a respectful, calm way,
Mhm.
uh, which is, I don't know, so something new to me.
Well, yeah, when you've done shadow work, when you've really worked on yourself, the human way, the old human way, the old 3D way would be like, well, 5 years ago, you told me
Mm-hmm.
this is and that, and I remember everything. The
Mm-hmm.
spiritual way is, oh, let me take it in. Let me think
Mm-hmm.
on it. Give me some moment to really understand what you're trying to say. Here, let me clarify just to make sure that I have it right. And then let
Mm-hmm.
me sit by myself for a little bit.
Yeah.
That's the spiritual way.
Mm-hmm.
Because the old way, it's let's fight. Come on, let's
Yes.
fight. But the new way is like, give me a fucking break. Let me take it in. And whatever resonates, I will acknowledge. Whatever does not, I will let you know that it does not.
Mhm.
And we both have to be okay with this process. We
Yes.
talk, we communicate.
There's
Yeah.
no more blame, right? There
No
used to be,
blaming.
right? And
Yes.
who the one who can blame the loudest?
Yeah, exactly. It's who could blame the loudest. No, you take my shit. No, you take my shit. And it's going back and forth. So yeah, um, that is one of the things that I freaking appreciate, because I would blame everybody for my feelings. You're making me feel like I'm stupid. You're
Mhm.
making me feel like I'm not good enough. And then spirituality is like, oh shit, I'm the one making
Mhm.
myself feel that way. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's the difference. And it's beautiful and it's so peaceful and it's so calm. Like
Yeah.
you have to take responsibility for everything that happens in your heart. All right, all right. So we have 15 minutes. I want to keep this in an hour. I do invite the ancestors to be present for this first interview video. And I invite the ancient ones to come through, the Palladians. I don't know why I said that. Everything of the highest knowing of the highest truth. May truth be spoken only. May our hearts be open to receive. And I just heard will. We are will. Okay. Um, the first thing I saw was golden light. It's beautiful, endless, all consuming. But before we got to the golden light, there's a collective dark night of the soul.
Mhm. Talk about that a little.
Yeah. And we all see the shadows we created. When we acknowledge we created everything. From the darkest shadow, control. That's it.
Mhm.
The shadow that we'll be facing is the shadow of control. That's the night, that would be the dark night of the soul, where we see that shadow.
Mhm.
You can't fight shadow. You'll only make it bigger.
So how to make it smaller?
Allow yourself to acknowledge you were a part of creating this shadow collectively. Mm. And instead of fighting it, sending light to it, love, compassion. It has to be heartfelt. It can't be fake. Oh. We
Are you
created control because we needed someone to tell us who we were, who to be, how to be. We
because
lost ourselves.
Mhm.
Mm.
Do we still need it?
There are many collectively that are unwilling to want to let it go. Mm.
Why is that?
Because they are in control.
Mhm.
They want to stay in power and control.
But correct me if I'm wrong, control is an illusion.
Everything is an illusion,
Mm.
not just control.
Mhm. So are they going to be in control for long?
The more we acknowledge that we are will, that we are sovereign beings,
Mhm.
the more people, the more that shadow becomes smaller. Collectively, we have to be in agreement that we're sovereign.
But we're not yet.
There are many that are still victims in their hearts. There are many that still seek guidance. They want to be told what to do. And there are many that want to continue to tell people what and who they should be. This is why it's important to reach to the darkest level and bring people up from the darkness. They are not victims. They just think they are.
Mhm.
It's an illusion. Empowering our brothers and sisters is important. The more you bring up into the light of truth, the more the control shadow will shrink and clear. There are too many people wanting to continue to be controlled. They don't know who they are.
Do you have a timeline for the change in that desire to be controlled?
It had already started. It has already started.
Mhm. And there's also a lot more light workers now.
Yes, and most of you are searching and working with people and helping,
Mhm.
and others are waiting, hiding, pretending they don't know when they do know.
Yes, they do. But they'll come out when it's their time, right?
Yes,
Anything specific that, let's say, Maria or I should be doing to help the process?
be authentic. Truly speak your truth.
Mhm.
Allow your hearts to continue to open.
No
You
more
can
holding.
reach, you can reach a higher audience. Your frequencies are reaching different levels of people.
Mhm.
Allow yourself to be willing to give truly from your heart. Allow yourself to love the journey. Smile and bring light into the world.
Thank you for doing it already, and we'll just continue doing that. Marie mentioned Pleiadians. Are they with us now?
They help humanity so much. Our brethren. They are a part of you.
Mhm.
They're advocates of the humankind.
That's beautiful. We need all the help we can get.
Oh, whew. Whew. That was weird.
Did you have uncomfortable feelings? Because you made noises that you might be like in pain, maybe.
I've been feeling some back aches in my heart center on the back side of my heart before we started. And energy just kept coming up and kept coming up, and it was releasing something. So, and of course, I'm like vibrating. I've never felt it physically before when I channeled, but emotionally, I felt something heal. I don't know what it is though.
Whatever it is, it needed healing.
When we first met, I wanted someone to practice channeling with. And of all the people that reached out to me, you were the one that I was drawn to. I don't know, my whole body feels weird right now. Not in a bad way, by the way. It's like stretching. I don't know if you understand what that means.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm very new. I am new at channeling, so I'm not sure exactly still how that all works. I've never taken a class or anything like that, so I don't know. I see a lot of images. When I'm channeling, I see a lot of images in my head. But I've had sessions with mediums, psychics, shamans. They're like, "Oh, you're a channeler." I'm like, "What?" Yeah, you don't even realize you're doing it, but haven't you noticed that you sometimes say things that are like, "What did I just say?"
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I think I've noticed that." So it's easy for me to get into that state, but I've never experienced it in my body before. This is new.
Oh. Well, maybe it is something that your body needed. So they're giving it to you, because it's always, I notice any type of healing, right? Be it Reiki, be it what I do, even though they're healing the person, but the person who's facilitating, right? Like Reiki, or who's guiding, like QHD, I still, that energy comes and I feel the healing as well for me.
Yeah.
So it might work. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'll let you know. But it was really nice having you on Zoom and having this session. Next week, I'm not sure who else I'm going to call on. I'm going to have my guides just give me the name. But I still want to do it this way, where this is the format. I want to be able to channel a little bit at the end of our interview. I've learned so much from you. It's really nice to be able to meet someone that I really resonate with. Of course, I'm sending blessings and love for you and your family always. Thank you for being in the meeting, and we'll talk again next week.
Yes, I'm excited. And let me know, or if you get something that it's someone I know, because I have now, I'm so thankful, know so many amazing people, amazing healers.
Yeah.
I would love it if they were your guests, because it's always a joy to talk to you. Always.
I love talking to you too. We'll see what happens. I'm sure that when we're talking about guests, the only word that came into my head is Lutheran. I have no idea what that means. So, yeah.
Okay.
So we'll see how that ends up playing out, but I'll post this right after the session. And hopefully next week we are able to do a YouTube live.
Yeah.
All right, sweetie. Have a great day.
Bye.